there's a lot of confusion when it comes to people don't have clarity on whether they're talking about what I call clinical coaching versus true to traditional coaching. And so there's often this blurry line. As I mentioned, insurers are confused by this.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sharice Williams Show. I am Sharice Williams and you are listening to the podcast that has been specifically created for nurses looking to create, launch, and scale their own holistic health coaching businesses. I am so excited to share this episode with you. I have none other than the phenomenal Jay Razzouk, Esquire. He is an attorney. I'm going to share a little bit more about him in a second, but today we're going to be talking about really the legal considerations for nursepreneurs, nurse-turned coaches. And so I'm very excited to have this discussion. I know that I get legal type questions often, and so I thought it'd just be a great idea to have Jay come on and share with us. So welcome, Jay. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharice, for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome. You're very welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. So let me share with you a little bit about Jay. So Jay is a corporate attorney and co-founder of ProSCALE Legal. Jay equips coaches, influencers, and mastermind leaders with the little known legal strategies and paperwork that they don't even know they need in order to scale to 7 figures and beyond. Like most people, Jay doesn't like contracts, and this is why he's pioneering the ProAct, a turnkey framework in a box designed to boost profits and build lifelong relationships while protecting one's legacies. Jay, along with his wife, Wendy, are also passionate about prevention, both legally and from a health perspective. This is why they developed strategic health coaching, a simplified approach to coaching that helps health practitioners confidently expand their reach and establish themselves as go-to experts while reducing the risk of losing their license. Very important. Jay is on a mission to simplify all the legal stuff for your online business so that you can scale with peace of mind. Welcome again, Jay.
Thank you again, Sharice. And boy, yeah, I got to say, my wife and I really love working with the health industry, especially those who are going into health coaching. Maybe we could talk a little bit about it, because that's one reason why I'm just so excited to be here, because I love what you're trying to teach the nurses to do, because we need more health practitioners to actually go into health coaching, I feel like, to really help people really find true healing these days.
You know what? You're speaking my language. You are speaking my language all day. I think that's why we really connect. And it's really interesting. So you and I have known each other for a couple of years now, probably maybe 3. We met 2 to 3 years, something like that. Yeah, I think it's closer to 3. We met in a high level mastermind. And, the minute I connected with you, I'm like, ooh, like, I like Jay. Jay knows his stuff. And you make things really simple. That's what I appreciate most about you. You just make it very simple. Sometimes when we get into legal talk, it can feel intimidating, right? Sometimes you don't even want to have a conversation because it's kind of like, whoa, it's intimidating for some. But you make it very approachable, very simple, very easy to talk about. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I try to take out the mystique and the cringe from the law. And I want it to be something that we could all be aligned with and be excited about.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's just jump right in. Let's talk a little bit about what is a health coach? What on earth is a health coach anyway?
That's right. I dropped that term, and boy, this is something that I think there's so much confusion out there, because there's a lot of, like, I'll just give an example. I'm trying to find insurance that I could recommend to health coaches. So I find an insurer, and I say, and on the website, they say we help health coaches. And then I said, okay, can you send me a policy so I can look at it? I'm looking at the policy, and it's all written from the perspective that you have a license in the state you operate, and that you work with patients, and you basically are giving medical advice or these sorts of things, medical treatment. I'm like, this doesn't work for a coach. So there's industry, the medical industry, I think, is trying to claim health coaching and have it so that it's something that like practitioners integrate as part of their practice, which I'm all for that. Anybody who's going to integrate it as a licensed professional, like if you're a nurse, you're going to integrate it with your nursing, you're going to be one of the best nurses out there. But from my perspective, a coach, a true purist coach, is going to be someone who is trying to help guide someone to meet their objectives. And in the case of a health coach, it's meet health objectives, and doing it in a way that's not going to be using one's license. And there's a big pro to doing that, which is like you probably know, right? As a nurse, you're only able to practice in the states you are licensed. And nurses have it easier compared to most practices, right, where you can get licensed in multiple states without too much hassle. But still, you're limited geographically. And it's that way for almost every licensed professional, doctor, dietitian, nutritionist. That one gets complicated, but you're more or less limited to where you're licensed. And then if you, so like for me, let's say I'm in California. So if someone's licensed in California and then they start giving dietetic nutritional advice to somebody in Florida, now you have potentially practiced nutrition without a license in the state of Florida.
Right.
So, and a lot of people don't realize this risk here. So coaching, when done right, allows you to assist people in multiple states without implicating one's license.
And that's such an important distinction to make, because I get that question. I'm sure you probably get a lot too. I get a lot of my clients are either nurses or nurse practitioners or nurse midwives, for that matter. And it's the whole licensure. The licensure question comes up all the time. And so, can you talk to me a little bit about? Again, I know we kind of just touched briefly on it, but why would a licensed professional, why would a clinician, nurse practitioner, doctor, any of them, decide to go the health coach route instead of operating, under their designated license? Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot of reasons. So we like to talk about how, number one, it helps you expand your reach. So you're not going to be capped geographically. You can reach anybody, anywhere, at least within the United States. And then secondly, it goes really well with trying to establish yourself as a well-known, recognizable expert. As a licensed professional, we might have a lot of limitations on our ability to advertise what we say we can't say. But if you're just promoting yourself as an individual with information, now you're going to have a lot more First Amendment free speech rights. And you can the things that you need to do to be successful as a coach are ideal to establish yourself as an expert in the world. So we're all about, be an expert, expand your reach, and coaching is great for that. Now, there's a third benefit to going into coaching. And I think any licensed health professional can relate to this, especially ones who are in the true clinical setting where, you're just always having to do all this paperwork. You're completely regulated. You are just in this grind, and you're getting just like 15 minutes per patient, and you're just feeling like you're not doing what you signed up to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if that. Right. Like, this is not what you became a nurse to do. So coaching gets back to the relationship. Yes. It allows you to have a way where you're spending more time with people. You're getting to, support them on their objectives, their goals, inspire them, motivate them, which is going to be about transformation. At the end of the day, coaching is about transformation. And that's when you see results. What we tend to see is, right, someone just goes in to the doctor's office. They're told, oh, this is your problem. This is your diagnosis. And you write a prescription, and then they go take a pill and supposed to do it the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. And that pill is just covering over the symptoms. So nothing is changing. Maybe they're getting slightly better, but you've not addressed the core need, where coaching is about going deeper. How do we motivate them? How do we get them to, again, meet their goals? Because they're the one in the driver's seat. Yeah. And that's going to be so much more meaningful for them. And one other thing that's great about coaching is it's not limited to this one-on-one relationship. in the sense of like when you are serving patients, you have one patient in the room at a time, and you can only occupy one space at a time. We're finite as humans, but as coaching, we can serve people in a group setting. And in the group setting, you actually get better results because then they can learn from each other.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person, I never like to ask questions. And then there are people in the room who'll ask the questions I'm thinking. I'm like, oh, I'm glad they asked.
Exactly.
So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at it from the perspective of transformation, right? People benefiting from, to your point about it being coaching in a group setting, people benefiting from that sense of community. Most of us thrive, when we have a community. And to your point, sometimes people are not going to ask questions. Either that's just not their personality, they just don't feel comfortable. Even though you've made it a comfortable environment, that's not comfortable for them. But there's so much that can be said and so much that can be learned just from being in a room with other people who are going to ask questions that you didn't even know to ask. And you're like, oh God, I'm so glad they asked that question. I got so much value from that question, and I didn't even have to ask. So I love that. And then looking at it from a business perspective, when you're looking at scalability, yes, our goal is to create transformation, to provide transformation for our clients, point blank, end of story. And at the same time, we also want to be able to build a scalable business. I love working one-on-one with my clients. It is, I love working one-on-one. And I equally love working in a group setting. And some people, depending on who they are, they need more of that group component, that community, or that sense of community. And, but when you're looking at scaling a business, when you are able to, instead of speaking one-to-one, one-to-many, now you can dramatically increase the growth of your company. You can dramatically increase the revenue, add team, and all that good stuff.
And that's huge. The significance of that can't be understated, because one reason we as professionals just feel like we're stuck on the treadmill and just always, when you're not working, you're not making money. That's because we've not created something that's scalable, where coaching is very scalable when you design your program correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the fun part, designing for me, at least, designing programs and creating that scalability, sustainability and scalability, because in my mind, they go hand in hand. Yeah. And it's not about, creating more.
I'm so glad you bring that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you going to add some?
Oh, I was just saying amen to that, because I've seen so many coaches that say who have a business model that actually isn't sustainable. So they could quickly get to 6 figures, 7 figures, and then just implode overnight because it wasn't actually something that was going to last.
Absolutely. And one thing that I find, and it really just, it hurts my heart, to be quite honest, is when I see, practitioners, transition to coaching, and they base they create a model, a one-to-one model, which I actually am a proponent of starting out one-to-one for many reasons, but then they don't look at, okay, how do we shift and go from a one-to-one model to a one-to-many model concurrently? It didn't have to be leave one behind. You can do both simultaneously. And what I was saying that it breaks my heart, what I find is that because they get so burned out one-to-one, and they're desiring to make more of an impact, and they're desiring to make more revenue, but they can't. And then what they ultimately do is they end up creating a business that's running them instead of them running their business, and they ultimately end up getting burnt out, and then they tap out, and then the world gets robbed of their gifts and talents. And that's the part that breaks my heart, when it could have just been a slight shift and slight shift in the business model. So yeah. So that said, what are?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and this is something I think a lot of us as professionals, we struggle with, because we're trained to be part of this cog of a larger wheel, and someone is always at the top telling us what to do. And then when we go out and start our own business, we're kind of used to, okay, now we got to do everything ourselves, and don't realize that we really need to start trusting other people, shift responsibility to them, and that's going to allow us to scale and not burn out. That's really such an important point you just said. One of the keys to success as an entrepreneur is being willing to delegate, rely on experts, and not do everything yourself.
not do everything yourself. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And also being willing to seek guidance, being willing to ask for support and help. Because here's the thing, we know what we know, right? We went to school for, let's say, nursing, or we went to school, we went to medical school, we went to law school, whatever the case may be. That's what we know. Like, that is our zone of genius. Even if you went to business school, I have lots of friends and colleagues that are nurses with MBAs, but they've never actually run a business. They've never actually been a solopreneur. And so what I've seen time and time again is that sometimes we feel like we should know. And it's like, no, how would you know? How would you know that how would you know that you could get to a point in your business where you have to shift your model? How would you know that? How would you know what's the first step, the second, third step? You're not expected to know. So for those of you who are listening, who are thinking you should know and are trying to kind of find your way through the dark, I would definitely encourage you, release yourself, give yourself some, release yourself from the pressure. Understand that you're not expected to know. There are people who do know and who are there to help guide you in the process. So you don't have to do it alone. There's no shame in not knowing. There's definitely no shame in not asking. The real tragedy would be asking for the support from someone that you trust, that you know can help get you there. So
that's $1 million advice right there, everybody.
It really is. And here's the thing too, a lot of times people will try to figure it out, but ultimately in the long run, the amount of time that they've spent trying to figure it out and the amount of money that they've spent trying to figure it out on their own, not knowing what to do. And let's talk about legal implications. They may have spent all this time figuring it out and they're not even protecting themselves legally. They're doing what they think they should do. But again, if law is not your area of expertise, I wouldn't go there.
Yeah. Just don't know what you don't know. But I have to really give credit to licensed professionals, because they end up being some of our best clients, because they really do appreciate and understand the importance of legal. And I think part of it is because you already have more assets, you have more at risk, you have your license. So the typical health professional says, I got to start off on the right foot, which is good, because a lot of entrepreneurs just sort of say, I'm going to wing it, I'll figure it out, whatever happens, happens. Yeah. And they kind of have this blissful ignorance. But professionals, I think, are used to informing yourself first, then doing something. So I love working with them. And when it comes to law, what do you not know? I mean, first one is, really understanding that demarcation between what you're allowed to do within your scope of practice versus where does coaching fit in, and how do you make sure you carefully don't cross over between the two and even blend them. Now, that's not to say if you want to just be all in on your practice and integrate coaching into it, great, wonderful, that's fine. But I'm talking about when you want to, serve people across state lines, reach more people. And in that situation, you need to make sure that you're leaving your license behind.
Yeah. So that you are still
and not using it for your coaching.
And not using it for your coaching. Absolutely. And here's the thing too, because I just want to really make this distinction. Jay said leave your license behind, but he didn't say leave your knowledge behind. Everything, like, you can't separate what you know. You can't separate your experience. You can't separate that. So I because I've had this conversation before, and people are like, well, wait, that's what I know. Yeah, yes. Bring all of that over here to the coaching space. Don't separate that. That's what makes you uniquely you. That's what makes working with you so wonderful and special. And that's what's going to allow your clients to be able to get that transformation. So don't leave any of that stuff over there. So what have you found? Well, I just want to stay here on this topic for just a second of what are some of the things or questions or concerns that you have that have been brought to you regarding just that? Like, you can leave, not blurring the line. Entrepreneurship.
Great question. So common questions would be, for example, how do I structure my businesses? Do I need like a separate LLC for the professional versus the coaching, which is a good question. How do you structure those? Another one would be, how do I integrate labs, let's say, into my program? That's a big one. So a lot of people want to have a certain level of customization and be able to, let's say, provide a custom diet to your clients based on their labs. There's a right way to do it And there's definitely many wrong ways. And I see a lot of especially functional medicine type programs out there teaching how to use labs in a way that would work in a clinical setting, but would not be in alignment with actually acting as a coach.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Do we have the time without going too in the weeds?
Yeah, I mean, at a very high level,
Mhm,
I really try to boil things and oversimplify them a little bit. But
mhm,
at a high level, if you are taking information in from your client and then analyzing that in your brain, like it's your brain is like a black box, and then you output a professional judgment and say, this is like what you should now do based on the information you gave me, that is coming close to diagnosing and treating and these other sorts of uh, services that are within the realm of licensed professionals only.
mhm.
So you want to make sure you aren't getting info about their situation, their unique circumstances, and then giving them a custom tailored procedure. This is what you should do based on what you told me. Ooh, that's not going to be good.
So let me ask you this, because I know there's lots
And
of people listening. They're like, wait a minute, but wait, hold on. Okay, so my
that's
question
how we
to
do
you,
it. That's how we do it. Yeah.
all right, so my question to you then becomes, um, let's take the same scenario. You have labs, and and I'm 1,000% clear on, of course, not diagnosing, and not diagnosing and treating. Totally clear on that. Educating in regards to those lab results.
And see, that's the key, and that's what we try to
Mhm.
share with our clients, work with them on, is making sure that you are doing it in a way that's more educational. You could structure your program in a way where you help guide people to the information they'll need, but you're not giving that custom tailored one-on-one sort of advice.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah. I mean, and you're right. Yeah, I'm glad you keep pointing to, well, if you're being educational, if you're being informational, that is kind of the mindset that we have to get into as a coach. And this comes back to America having the First Amendment, we having free speech rights. We should all be allowed to share information. And this is something which kind of has been in debate a lot recently, right? About should there be censorship, what we do about misinformation, disinformation. But
Mhm.
we as coaches should realize that it's super important to protect this right, because this is what our bread and butter depends on, to be
Yeah.
able to share people information, which might even be unpopular information at the current time.
Yeah. 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 we've had you and I have had discussions about that offline. And so yeah, very good, very good. And so um have we talked about yet the difference? Yes, we did. We talked about the difference between clinical practice and coaching. Anything else you want to share along that, or even along the lines of the educational piece, and really staying clear of the diagnosing piece, but coming from a perspective of um, education and transformation, to be quite honest.
So this is coming back to the one to many model, and this is where it
Hmm.
helps, because if you're putting yourself primarily in positions where you have a big group, you're addressing multiple people at one time, it helps reduce the risk that it looks like you're giving one-on-one advice to people. So definitely that's there's just so many ways where if you follow the traditional best practices for coaching, that actually is going to steer you towards better practices for not using your license.
Yeah.
And again, the one to many model is one of these uh, essential components, I feel like, for doing coaching at its best. And again, you could do one-on-one. There's ways to do it,
Sure.
and as you said, that's a good way to start off. But switching to one-to-one models and having a course where information is ready pre-made,
Hmm.
and then if people have questions, whatever, you can say, oh, check out this video.
Hmm.
Just like for me, for legal questions, I get legal questions all the time, and it's great to just be able to say, hey, I made a video right on that topic, here's a link, boom.
Yeah.
And now I'm not having to seem like, oh yeah, custom legal advice for that one
Customer legal
person.
advice for that one person. Yeah, so important. And what I'm hearing a lot, and what I'm hearing you say also is, and this is something that I recommend as well as you're looking at moving more into a one to many model, is creating resources. Number one, it's going to free up your time, and then, but number two, you are definitely making sure that you're staying on the other side of the line in terms of educating your client population, whoever that might be, but making sure that you are really, what's the word, really staying in integrity with coaching. Staying in integrity with coaching. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you can make multiple modules, even as a course or as a membership. I mean, there's so many, oh my gosh, there's so many different ways that we will definitely not hop into today, but so many different ways in order to do that, that are scalable and sustainable and that still provide transformation, because at the end of the day, that is what we're here to do. That is what we're here to provide. So that said,
Exactly.
yeah. So that said, can you share with us maybe one or two key clauses, key things in our contracts that we need to make sure that we incorporate so that we are compliant legally?
Great question. So for practitioners, one of the big one is going to be having proper disclaimers in there, being clear that you're not acting as a doctor, nurse, other health professional, that you're not giving medical, nursing, whatever type of advice, you're not giving treatment. They should make sure that they're going to go to those professionals. And it's one thing to just have those disclaimers. It's completely another thing to actually make sure your contract also is written so that in terms of substance, you're not providing medical services. So there's form and there's substance. You can have all those disclaimers, but then if you're actually providing medical services, that's not going to help. And we have seen, we've done audits for people's contracts, and we had this one contract come in one time, and my wife, Wendy, and I were both looking at this, and we could not tell, is this coaching or is this clinical? It just would seem to bounce back and forth. And, we met with the person whose template was, and we said, like, this looks really dangerous, because you could probably, if we're confused, customers are going to be confused, and the board might be confused as to what you're actually doing. And and it looked at us as if we were crazy criticizing this contract, because apparently it was a very common contract being circulated in the functional medicine circles. So
interesting. Yeah. And this is one thing I just want to add for those who are listening. This is not a conversation to scare you, but rather to raise your awareness around what is appropriate, what is not, what is compliant, what is not, what you should be on the lookout for, right? This is all this podcast, this specific podcast episode is specifically to help you increase your awareness and to help you understand, yes, you can absolutely, clearly, be a nurse or nurse practitioner or, clinician in any capacity. And yes, you can be a health coach, but there are certain ways in which you want to do that so that you are protected, so that your legacy is protected, so that your work is protected. And so, Jay, I know you have templates. I know you have tons of resources that people can access when they work with you. I know that you even audited one of my templates. You didn't have a whole. I don't remember like Charisse. No, you can't do that. No, but I do appreciate you having your eyes on the contract to make sure that that I was protected, and that to make sure that I was protected. So. I know that you have a phenomenal masterclass. Can you tell us a little bit about the masterclass that you teach?
Yeah, so it's called the 3 Big Costly Legal Mistakes That Health Coaches Make. And this is just try to get awareness out there so that people can learn from lessons of other people that we've helped, so that you don't have to make those mistakes. You could be aware of the issues out there and know what your next steps could be. And as you mentioned, I'm not really wanting to scare people. I believe in leading with love.
Yes.
But if there's one takeaway, it really is that there's so much confusion out there in the functional medicine space. I don't even like that word, because it can mean so many different things to different people. And
I saw a meme.
It's just good to be aware of this.
I want you to continue on with what you were saying. I just wanted to interject really quickly. I saw a meme somewhere that it said, functional medicine, and it said, so what we've been practicing all along, dysfunctional medicine? And I was like, huh. It was funny, but I was like, well, that's interesting. Very interesting. So anyway, so to your point, yes, there's could be some different definitions out there, but please continue.
Yeah, and just there's a lot of confusion when it comes to people don't have clarity on whether they're talking about what I call clinical coaching versus true to traditional coaching. And so there's often this blurry line. As I mentioned, insurers are confused by this. If you look at software to like run practices, they'll talk about they cover coaching. If you read it though, it's really clinical coaching.
Clinical coaching.
So I want you to be aware of this, that just coaching isn't always coaching. And if it looks like really it's in a clinical setting and you're helping patients, if you're under HIPAA, if you're under all these things, it might be that really this service, this person, whatever, is helping people in the context of clinical coaching that might require a license.
Yeah.
And it's good to make sure you're working with someone who, if you're helping you with coaching, they understand the coaching. Like Charisse, you seem to have a good idea of understanding like the essence of coaching, that transformation being educational. And it's not about it's not about doing these customized one-on-one special plans based on people's personal information that is more specified for only people in the licensed professional space.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. And so I'm excited about the masterclass. I know that as soon as I mentioned it and you kind of explained it, people were like, "Oh my God, how do I register for that?" And so, how do they register for that, Jay? How do they get more of this information?
So we have a simple link that I think you'll drop in the show notes, right? But
yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be proscalelegal.com/A3 capital M, capital H, or you can always look me up at Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm the only Jay Razzouk on the planet, as far as I know. So
on the planet, I knew you were unique, but I did not know how unique you truly were. So I love that. So find them on social media, Jay Razzouk. Well, definitely make sure you have the spelling because it's on the screen, but we'll put it in the show notes as well. I will definitely be sure to have them include the link to your phenomenal masterclass that I encourage every single one of you that are listening to attend his masterclass. Attend the masterclass. It's free, right? Is it free, Jay?
Yes, absolutely free.
It doesn't matter. There's no reason for you not
everybody to be able to have access to this.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And if you are already kind of in you're already established coach, and you need to kind of shore up some things, I cannot recommend enough that you reach out to Jay to make sure that you are that your documentation's in order, to make sure that you're compliant. And you see how easy he is to talk to and all that good stuff. So very educational as well. I appreciate your approach to law and all things legal, Jay. So thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me and doing what you do to help others go through their own transformation to help the many with theirs.
Yeah, it's so great. Any final words as we come to an end?
I just want to really encourage you, if you're on that edge of should I take the leap and go into coaching, to really just say that there's nothing more rewarding to actually be doing things your way with your knowledge, your experience, meeting and helping those ideal clients of yours, those people who have been looking for you and they just haven't been able to find you yet. And there's nothing on par to being able to guide them on the journey and see them become what they wanted to be. It's beautiful, and you're being denied that right now as a professional, and hope you'll consider taking that leap and work with someone like Charisse to help you get there.
Yeah, thank you. That was so profound. I'm going to leave it right there. That was so good, and I agree 100% wholeheartedly. So on both parts, what you said, and then work with Charisse. No, just kidding. Oh my gosh! So no, this has been a phenomenal time that we've had together. Thank you again for all of your wisdom, your guidance, your expertise, bringing to awareness some of the things that maybe some of our listeners had not even considered. Again, thank you for your time, and I cannot wait to connect with you on all socials again.
Great. Thanks so much, Charisse, for having me. And
Oh, you're so welcome.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And you the same. You do the same. And thank you to everyone who's listening. Join us next time, next week, same time, for another phenomenal episode of The Charisse Williams Show. Bye for now.